Picture this, friends. The sun's beating down on the Arizona desert like God's own anvil, heat waves dancing off the red dirt road, and there, walking through that furnace, is a man in black. Not the kind of black you'd expect from a gunslinger. No, sir. This is preacher black, Bible black, the kind of clothes that say, "I come in peace to every soul from here to California." His name is Lucas Graham, 40-something years old, with silver threading through his dark hair like morning frost. Got kind eyes that seem to have seen too. Much, and hands that shake just a little when he thinks nobody's looking. He's been walking for 3 days straight. His horse threw a shoe outside Tucson, and he couldn't afford another mount. So he walks, Bible tucked under his arm, water skin getting lighter with each mile. But here's the thing about the desert, friends. It doesn't care if you're a preacher or a devil. It'll kill you just the same. Lucas stops under a scraggly mesquite tree, wipes the sweat from his brow, opens that worn leather Bible and reads aloud to the empty desert. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." His voice cracks on the words, not from thirst, mind you, from something deeper, because Lucas Graham has a secret that would make every lawman from Texas to California sit up and take notice. You see, 10 years ago, there was a man named John Jameson Jones. They called him Triple J, and Triple J was the most wanted thief in 5 states, but Triple J died in a river crossing. Least, that's what everyone believes. The sound of hoofbeats breaks the desert silence. Dust cloud. On the horizon, getting bigger, Lucas closes his Bible, stands tall and waits. 5 riders, hard men with harder eyes, the kind who'd shoot a man for his boots and sleep sound that night. The leader's a big fellow with a scar running from his ear to his jaw. Name's Bull Morrison. He's got a reputation for taking what he wants and asking questions later. "Well, well," Bull says, reining in his horse. "What we got here, boys? A Bible thumper lost in the desert?" Lucas raises his hand in greeting. "Afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Preacher Graham, heading to Silver Creek to deliver Sunday service." Bull laughs. It's not a pleasant sound. "Preacher, huh? Must be carrying some fine donations in that bag of yours." "Just scripture and hope, I'm afraid." "Hope don't buy whiskey," one of the other men spits. But Bull's thinking. You can see the wheels turning behind those cold eyes. "You know what, preacher? I think you might be worth more than what's in your pockets." The other riders exchange glances. They know that look. "How's that?" Lucas asks, though his voice stays steady as stone. "Well, a man of God's got to have folks who care about him, folks who'd pay good money to see him safe." Bull grins, showing yellowed teeth. "Consider yourself our guest." Before Lucas can respond, 2 of the men are off their horses, rope in hand. Now here's where it gets interesting, friends, because as they're tying his hands, something flickers in Lucas Graham's eyes, just for a second, like lightning behind storm clouds. For just a moment, Triple J is looking out through those kind preacher eyes. But he doesn't fight, doesn't run, just stands there and lets them bind him like a lamb for slaughter. As they hoist him onto a spare horse, Bull leans close. "Don't worry, preacher. Long as your congregation pays up, you'll see another Sunday." Lucas just nods. But if you were watching real close, you might have noticed him studying each man's face, the way they handle their weapons, how they sit their horses. Old habits, they say, die hard, but what Bull Morrison doesn't know about his gentle captive will change everything. Have you ever had to hide who you really are to protect the people you love? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. They ride hard for 2 hours. The sun's starting to sink toward the western mountains, painting the sky the color of fresh blood. Lucas bounces on his horse, hands bound tight, but he doesn't complain. Doesn't ask for water, just watches. He's learning things. The way Jake, the youngest rider, favors his left leg. How Smiley, the one with gold teeth, keeps checking his rifle. How Red Murphy's horse has a loose shoe that'll throw him if they run hard. These men think they caught a sheep. They have no idea they're riding with a wolf. Bull calls a halt near some red rocks. Good place for camp. Water nearby, cover from the wind. Defensible position. Jake, get a fire going. Smiley, tend the horses. Red, you and Curly take first watch. They drag Lucas off his horse, tie him to a boulder. He doesn't resist, just sits there calm as Sunday morning. "You're taking this mighty well, preacher," Bull says, squatting down beside him. "Most folks would be crying for their mama about—" "Now," Lucas looks up at him. Those kind eyes haven't changed. "I'm in God's hands now, same as always." Bull spits in the dirt. "God's hands, right. Well, your God better have deep pockets because we're asking $5,000 for your safe return." $5,000. That gets Lucas's attention. Not because of the money, but because of what it means. These men don't just rob travelers. They're professionals. They've done this before. Jake gets the fire crackling. He's young, maybe 19. Nervous hands. Keeps looking at Lucas like he's expecting the preacher to sprout horns. Never kidnapped a holy man before, Jake mutters to Smiley. Money's money, Smiley replies, but he doesn't sound convinced. As darkness falls, they settle. In beans and hardtack for dinner. They give Lucas water and some food, which surprises him. Professional kidnappers, not killers. At least not yet. Bull's writing a ransom note by firelight. What's the name of your church, preacher? First Baptist of Silver Creek. Good, they'll have money, church folks always do. Bull pauses, pen hovering over paper. You got family? Wife? Children? For just a moment, Lucas's composure cracks. Pain flickers across his face like shadows on a wall. No family, he says quietly. But that's not entirely true, is it? Because there's Vanessa. Sweet Vanessa Norton with her brown hair and blue eyes. The woman who forgave the unforgivable. The woman who married a man carrying the weight of her father's blood on his hands. She's waiting for him in Silver Creek, probably pacing the front porch of their little house, wondering why he's late. Well, Bull says, finishing his note, the good church folk will have to do. The fire burns lower. The men settle into their bedrolls, leaving Red on watch. He's a good choice. Steady, hands, sharp eyes. But everyone has weaknesses. Red's weakness is tobacco. Every 20 minutes he steps away from camp to smoke his pipe. Just for a minute or two, but that's all it would take. Lucas lies on his side, rope cutting into his wrists. But he's not thinking about escape. Not yet. He's thinking about a young girl with fever-bright eyes and a voice like angel song. Her name was Sarah. She was 8 years old when Triple J found her in that burned-out church. Her family was dead, killed by raiders not unlike these men. She was dying too, infection taking her slow. But before she went, she talked to him, told him about Jesus, about forgiveness and second chances, about how God could wash the blood off any man's hands if he truly wanted to change. Promise me, she'd whispered with her last breath, promise you'll tell people about the good news. That was 10 years ago. 10 years of keeping that promise. 10 years of being Lucas Graham instead of Triple J. Red steps away to smoke. Right on schedule. Lucas could slip these ropes, learned how from a Cherokee scout years back, could be free in 30 seconds, steal a horse, and be miles away before they knew he was gone. But he doesn't. Because Lucas Graham doesn't run. He trusts in the Lord and faces whatever comes, even if what's coming might just kill him. Jake shifts in his sleep, mumbling something about his mother. Smiley snores like a freight train. Curly mutters prayers under his breath. Interesting that one of Bull's men is a believer. Red comes back, settles against a rock, checks his pocket watch. 3 more hours till his shift ends. That's when Lucas hears it. Soft footsteps. Careful. Calculated. Someone's out there in the darkness, moving quiet as death itself. His blood turns cold, because he knows those footsteps, knows that particular way of moving through hostile territory. Apache. But these desert warriors aren't here for the kidnappers. What would you do if you had the skills to escape but the principles that said you shouldn't? Drop your thoughts below. This kind of moral conflict fascinates me. The Apache warrior steps into the firelight like smoke given form, paint on his face, rifle in his hands. Not alone. Lucas can hear at least 3 others moving in the shadows. Red reaches for his gun, never makes it. The Apache warrior's name is Standing Bear. Lucas recognizes him after a moment. They met years ago, when Triple J was running. From a posse through Apache territory. Standing Bear saved his life that day, not out of kindness but out of respect, because Triple J had never stolen from the people, never killed their women or children. Evening, John, Standing Bear says, quietly. The name hits camp like a lightning strike. Red's hand freezes on his gun. Bull jerks awake, eyes wide. John, Bull whispers, your name's Lucas. But Standing Bear isn't done talking. Been tracking these men for 3 days. They killed my nephew outside Tucson, shot him for his horse. Jake was that horse. That's why the boy's been so nervous. You got business with them, not me, Lucas says carefully. Standing Bear tilts his head. Do I? The great Triple J, reduced to wearing preacher clothes? The silence that follows could cut glass. Bull's face goes through about 6 different expressions. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, fear. Triple J died 10 years ago, Bull breathes. Drowned crossing the Pecos. Did he? Standing Bear's smile has no warmth in it. Funny thing about water. Sometimes it washes a man clean. Sometimes it just teaches him how to hold his breath. Jake scrambles to his feet, reaching for his rifle. Standing Bear's friends emerge from the darkness. 4 Apache warriors, armed and painted for war. "Now hold on," Bull says, trying to sound calm. "We don't want trouble with the Apache." "Too late for that," Standing Bear replies. "So who want trouble when you killed my sister's boy?" Red's going for his gun. Lucas can see it in his posture, the way his weight shifts. "Don't," Lucas says sharply. Red freezes. Everyone looks at the preacher tied to a rock. "Standing Bear," Lucas continues. "These men are my captors, not my friends, but they don't deserve to die in their sleep. Since when does Triple J care about fair fights? Since I became someone else." Standing Bear studies him for a long moment. Then he nods to his warriors. They lower their rifles slightly. "Tell you what, John, we'll make this interesting. Your captors want ransom money. I want justice for my nephew. Let's see who's stronger, the preacher or the thief." Bull's sweating now. "What's that supposed to mean?" Standing Bear cuts Lucas's ropes with one swift motion. "It means your prisoner just became your biggest problem." Lucas rubs his wrists, feeling blood flow back into his hands. Muscle memory kicks in. The way he holds himself changes. Subtle, but everyone sees it. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he says. "But you could," Standing Bear observes. "Question is, will you?" Bull's hand inches toward his gun. "I don't care if you're Triple J or Jesus Christ himself. You're still worth $5,000. "Dead or alive," Smiley adds, his gold teeth glinting. Jake's shaking now. "Maybe we should just let him go." "Shut up, boy," Bull snaps. But Jake's got a point. 5 men against 1 sounds like good odds until you realize the one used to be the most feared outlaw in the territory. Lucas stands slowly, brushes dust off his preacher clothes. "Gentlemen, I'm going to make you an offer." "We're listening," Bull says. "Let me walk away, forget you ever saw me. In return, I forget I saw you." "What about my nephew?" Standing Bear asks. Lucas looks at him. "Justice and revenge aren't the same thing. You know that. And if they refuse your offer..." Lucas picks up his Bible, checks that it's undamaged. "Then we find out if 10 years of preaching made me soft." The tension in the air is thick enough to cut. 5 desperate men, 4 Apache warriors, 1 preacher who might not be what he seems. Red makes his choice, goes for his gun. He's fast. Faster than most. But Lucas Graham was Triple J for 14 years, and Triple J was faster than death itself. Red's gun clears leather. Lucas moves like liquid lightning. 1 step, 1 motion, and Red's on the ground, gun flying into the darkness. "Anyone else?" Lucas asks mildly. The firelight flickers across his face. For just a moment the mask slips completely, and what looks back at them isn't a gentle preacher. It's the devil they used to fear. But the real test of who Lucas Graham has become starts now. "Do you think people can really change? Or does our true nature always show through in the end? I'm genuinely curious about your take on this." The silence stretches like a held breath. Red groans in the dirt, clutching his wrist, probably broken. The others stare at Lucas like they're seeing a ghost walk, which in a way they are. "Sweet Jesus," Jake whispers. "You really are him." Lucas kneels beside Red, checks his injury with gentle hands. The preacher is back, just like that. "It's not broken, sprained bad though." "Don't touch me," Red spits. Standing Bear watches this with interest. "You could have killed him." "I don't kill anymore." "Since when?" Lucas helps Red sit up against a rock, despite the man's protests. "Since I learned that every man carries someone else's heart in his chest." Bull's recovered his composure. "Somewhat. Triple J or not, you're still outnumbered." "Am I?" Lucas glances at the Apache warriors. "Standing Bear, you want justice. These men killed your nephew. But if you kill them here tonight, their families will never know what happened. Their mothers will wonder forever if their sons are still alive somewhere." Standing Bear's face doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. "My nephew's mother wonders too. Then let them face a judge. Let the law decide. White man's law." Standing Bear spits in the fire. It hisses and pops. "White man's law that lets them kill Apache boys for horses." Lucas nods. "Fair point. But revenge won't bring your nephew home." Jake speaks up, voice shaking. "I didn't kill nobody. I bought a horse in Tucson. Didn't know where it came from." Standing Bear turns those dark eyes on the boy. "You paid money for a horse with blood on its saddle?" "I didn't see no blood." "Because you didn't look." The accusation hangs in the air. Jake's face crumples. Just a kid, really. Probably ran away from some farm in Kansas, dreaming of adventure. "Boy's right," Curly says suddenly. "Everyone, looks at him in surprise. The quiet one speaking up. Jake didn't kill nobody. Hell, Jake never even fired his gun except at bottles. Bull rounds on him. Shut your mouth, Curly. No. Curly stands up, hands raised, peaceful-like. I'm tired of this. Tired of running, tired of looking over my shoulder. Maybe it's time to face what we done. Smiley laughs, but there's no humor in it. You want to hang? That what you're saying? I'm saying maybe the preacher's right. Maybe there's another way. Lucas watches this play out with careful eyes, seeing the cracks in Bull's gang, the doubt, the fear, the guilt. Curly, he says gently, you pray sometimes. I heard you last night. Curly's face reddens. Man's got a right to talk to God. Yes, he does. What does God tell you about all this? The question hits like a thunderbolt. Curly looks around at his companions, then back at Lucas. He tells me I'm lost, Curly whispers. Been lost for years. Standing Bear steps forward. Pretty words. But my nephew is still dead. What was his name? Lucas asks. Standing Bear pauses. Running Wolf. Tell me about him. Why? Because every man deserves to be remembered. For a moment, Standing Bear's warrior mask slips. He was 16, wanted to be a scout like his grandfather, smart boy, quick with horses, gentle with children. The fire crackles. Everyone's listening now. He sounds like a good kid, Lucas says. The kind who'd want justice, not bloodshed. You didn't know him? No, but I knew another child once. A little girl who taught me that mercy is stronger than revenge. Standing Bear studies him. The girl who made you a preacher? The girl who showed me what I could become instead of what I was. Jake suddenly blurts out, I'll pay for the horse. Whatever it cost. I'll work it off, I swear. Blood debt isn't paid with money, Standing Bear says, but his voice is softer. Then what? Jake asks desperately. What do I do? Lucas looks around the circle of faces. Desperate men, lost men, angry men. Men who'd forgotten they were human beings instead of just animals fighting over scraps. You remember, he says, simply. You remember Running Wolf. You tell his story. You make sure he's not forgotten. That's it, Bull sneers. Remember? Memory is how we honor the dead. It's how we carry them with us. Standing Bear is quiet for a long time. When he speaks, his voice is different. Less warrior, more man. In 3 days, there's a gathering of the people. We mourn Running Wolf properly. You come, all of you. You look his mother in the eyes. And tell her how her son died. Bull's face goes pale. We can't just walk into an Apache camp. Under my protection you can, Standing Bear says. You face his mother. You carry his memory, that's the price. And if we refuse? Smiley asks. Standing Bear's hand moves to his knife. Then we finish this here. The choice hangs in the air like smoke from the dying fire. But sometimes the hardest choice is learning to live with what you've done. Have you ever had to face someone you wronged? How did you find the courage? Share your story. These moments of truth are what make us human. Morning comes like a reluctant witness, painting the desert in shades of gold and regret. The fires burn down to ashes. The men sit in an uneasy circle, nobody quite meeting anyone else's eyes. Standing Bear hasn't left. Neither have his warriors. They're camped just outside the ring of rocks, watching, waiting. Bull Morrison. Looks like he aged 10 years overnight. The big man who terrorized half of Arizona territory is staring at his hands like they belong to someone else. All right, he says finally. We'll do it. We'll face the boy's mother. Jake lets out a shaky breath. Curly nods like he expected this. Smiley and Red exchange glances, but they don't argue. Good, Standing Bear says. We leave at noon. That leaves half a day. Half a day for Lucas Graham to decide what he's going to do next. Because he's got his own choice to make. Walk away clean like he wanted to. Or stay and see this through to the bitter end. Preacher, Bull says, this don't concern you no more. You're free to go. Lucas is packing his Bible, checking his water skin. Freedom's right there, just a few steps away. He could be in Silver Creek by nightfall. Back to Vanessa, back to his quiet life. But he stops, looks at Jake, barely 19, and scared out of his mind, looks at Curly, trying to find his way back to God, even looks at Bull, carrying the weight of too many bad choices. I'll come with you, he says. Why? Standing Bear asks. Because sometimes we need a witness, someone to help us remember who we're supposed to be. The truth is deeper than that, though. The truth is that Lucas Graham can't walk away from broken people any more than Triple J could walk away from a good score. They break camp slowly. Nobody's in a hurry to reach their destination. Even the horses seem to sense the mood, stepping, careful and quiet. As they ride, Curly edges his horse closer to Lucas. Preacher, he says quietly, I got to ask you something. Go ahead. You really think God forgives everything, even the real bad stuff? Lucas considers the question. He's asked it himself, plenty of times. Usually at 3 in the morning, when the guilt sits heavy on his chest like a gravestone. I think God's forgiveness is bigger than our understanding, he says finally. But that doesn't mean we don't have to live with what we've done. How do you live with it? The question cuts deep, because how do you live with the memory of a man's last breath? How do you sleep knowing there's a grave with your victim's name on it? One day at a time, Lucas says. One choice at a time. Try to be better today than you were yesterday. But don't it eat at you? The remembering. Lucas thinks of Vanessa, the way she looked when he finally told her the truth, the way her face went pale as winter when she realized he was the one who killed her father. Every single day, he admits. They ride in silence for a while. The sun climbs higher, baking the red dirt beneath their horses' hooves. That's when Standing Bear raises his hand. Halt. Something's wrong. The Apache warrior's head is tilted, listening. His horse snorts and sidesteps, nervous. What is it? Bull asks. Riders. Coming fast. The sound reaches them a moment later. Hoofbeats, lots of them, coming from the direction of Silver Creek. Lucas's blood turns cold, because he knows those riders, knows the man leading them, Sheriff Tom Bradley. Good lawman, fair man. Also the man who's been hunting Triple J for 15 years. How many? Bull asks. 6, maybe 7. Standing Bear's already signaling his warriors to spread out. They're not chasing us, they're searching. Lucas knows what they're searching for. Someone told them about the preacher who disappeared. Probably Vanessa, worried sick when he didn't come home. But if Bradley gets a good look at his face, we need to move, he says. Where? Jake asks. We're in the middle of nowhere. Standing Bear points toward a ridge of red rocks. There, we can see them coming, decide what to do. They urge their horses forward, but they're not fast enough. The riders crest a hill to the south, dust cloud marking their passage, and they're heading straight for them. Damn, Bull mutters. What do we do? Lucas makes a choice that surprises everyone, including himself. He strips off his preacher coat, hands it to Jake. Put this on. Pull the hat low. What? From a distance you could pass for me. Buy us some time. But what about you? Lucas's smile is grim. I'm going to be someone I haven't been in 10 years. He dismounts, starts gathering dust and rubbing it into his face and hair, changes his posture, the way he holds his shoulders, becomes someone else entirely. When he looks up, Triple J is staring back at them. Holy hell, Red breathes. Now listen close, Lucas says, and his voice is different too, harder. That's Sheriff Bradley coming up on us. He's been hunting me for 15 years. If he recognizes me, we're all dead men. So what's the plan? Bull asks. The plan is we become what we appear to be. A gang of outlaws and their Apache allies. Bradley's outnumbered. He'll be cautious. Standing Bear nods approvingly. You want to bluff. I want to survive. All of us. The riders are getting closer. Close enough to see the glint of badges. In the sunlight. But sometimes the person you used to be is exactly who you need to become. What would you do if facing your past meant protecting people who'd wronged you? Tell me in the comments. These moral crossroads fascinate me. Sheriff Bradley's no fool. He reins in his posse about 200 yards out, close enough to parley but far enough to run if things go south. Smart man, cautious man, the kind who's lived this long by not taking unnecessary risks, but he's got a job to do. You men there, he calls out. I'm Sheriff Bradley, Silver Creek County, looking for a missing preacher named of Lucas Graham. Lucas, now Triple J again, steps forward, lets the sun hit his face just right, showing the hard lines that 10 years of guilt couldn't quite erase. Sheriff, he says, touching his hat brim, afraid we ain't seen hide nor hair of any preacher. Bradley squints, studying faces. His gaze lingers on Jake in the preacher coat, then moves to the Apache warriors. Unusual company you're keeping, Bradley observes. Standing Bear speaks up. These men are under my protection, Sheriff. We have business together. What kind of business? The kind that don't concern white law. The tension ratchets up another notch. Bradley's deputies shift nervously. Apache and outlaws together. That's a combination that keeps lawmen awake at night. Well, Bradley says carefully, I don't want any trouble. Just looking for a missing man of God. Wife's worried sick. The word wife hits Lucas like a physical blow. Vanessa. Beautiful, patient Vanessa. Probably pacing their kitchen floor. Right about now. He almost breaks character. Almost calls out that he's alive, he's safe, he's coming home. But Bull Morrison chooses that moment to do something stupid. Preacher, huh? Bull grins, showing those yellow teeth. What's he worth to you, Sheriff? Bradley's hand moves closer to his gun. He's not worth anything except to the people who love him. Love. Bull spits in the dirt. Funny thing about love, makes people do foolish things, like ride into the desert with only 6 men. The deputies are spreading out now, hands on weapons. This is about to go very bad, very fast. Bull, Lucas says quietly, shut your mouth. But Bull's not listening. He's seeing opportunity. You know what? I think, Sheriff, I think your preacher might be closer than you realize. He's looking right at Jake in the preacher coat. Bradley follows his gaze, starts putting pieces together. Boy, he calls to Jake, what's your name? Jake's voice shakes when he answers. J. John, sir. John what? Before Jake can answer, Lucas steps between them. Sheriff Bradley, he says, and something in his voice makes the lawman focus on him completely. You've been hunting someone for a long time, someone who caused you a lot of grief. Bradley's eyes narrow. Something familiar in the voice, the way the man holds himself. I've hunted many men, but there's one in particular, one who's been eating at you for 15 years. Recognition dawns slowly. Bradley's face goes pale. No, he whispers. You're dead, drowned in the Pecos. Lucas Graham pulls off the last of his disguise, stands there as himself, neither preacher nor outlaw, just a man carrying too much history. Hello, Tom. The silence that follows could shatter glass. 6 lawmen staring at the most wanted outlaw in the territory, 4 Apache warriors ready for war, 5 desperate men caught in the middle, and 1 preacher who just signed his own death warrant. John Jameson Jones, Bradley breathes. Triple J. In the flesh. Bradley's gun is in his hand faster than thought. His deputies follow suit. 6 barrels pointed at the group. You're under arrest for robbery, murder, and about a dozen other charges. I figured as much. Don't move, any of you. But Standing Bear laughs, actually laughs. Sheriff, you have bigger problems than old warrants. Such as? Such as you're outnumbered 3 to 1. Such as you're 20 miles from the nearest backup. Such as you just drew weapons on men under Apache protection. Bradley's tactical mind is working overtime. He's got right on his side, but right don't stop bullets. This doesn't have to end badly, he says. No, Lucas agrees, it doesn't. He starts walking forward, slow, deliberate, hands visible. Don't move, Bradley shouts, but Lucas keeps walking. Tom, you've got a choice to make. You can try to arrest me, probably get your men killed in the process, or you can listen to what I have to say. I'm listening. Lucas stops 10 feet away, close enough to see the conflict in Bradley's eyes. The preacher you're looking for? He's standing. Right here. Lucas Graham is who I became when I decided Triple J needed to die. Pretty words, but you're still a wanted man. Am I? Show me a crime I've committed in the last 10 years. Show me one person I've wronged since I put on that collar. Bradley hesitates because he can't. For 10 years, Lucas Graham has been a model citizen, a good man doing good work. Doesn't change what you did before. No, it doesn't. Lucas's voice carries the weight of a decade's worth of guilt, but it might change what happens next. The standoff stretches like a held breath. 2 men who've been playing this game for half their lives, hunter and hunted, law and outlaw, but which is which anymore? That's when a new voice cuts through the tension and changes everything. Do you believe in second chances, or do some crimes follow you forever? Share your thoughts. This question is at the heart of every redemption story. Tom Bradley, you stubborn fool. Everyone spins toward the voice. There, riding up the draw, with just one companion, is Judge Margaret Harrison. 70 years old, sharp as a razor, and feared by every lawman and outlaw from Texas to California. She's been the territorial judge for 25 years. Seen more cases than Carter's got pills. And right now she's looking at Sheriff Bradley like he's a schoolboy caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Judge Harrison, Bradley stammers, what are you doing here? Same thing you are. Looking for Preacher Graham. She reins in her horse, surveys the standoff with calculating eyes. Though I see you've found considerably more than you bargained for. Her gaze settles on Lucas. John Jameson Jones. Been wondering when you'd surface again. Your Honor. Don't Your Honor me, boy. You've caused me more paperwork than any 10 outlaws combined. She dismounts with surprising agility for her age. Tom, put that gun away before you embarrass yourself further. Judge, this man is a wanted fugitive. Was. Past tense. She pulls a leather satchel from her saddlebags. Recent development in the case. The words hit like thunder. Everyone's attention focuses on that satchel. What kind of development? Bradley asks. Judge Harrison unfolds a document. Deathbed confession. Samuel Norton, the man you supposedly killed 15 years ago. The world tilts sideways. Lucas feels like he's been punched in the gut. That's impossible, he whispers. I shot him. I watched him die. You shot him, yes, but he didn't die. Not that day, anyway. The judge's voice is matter of fact, like she's discussing the weather. Seems the bullet missed his heart by inches. He lived another 14 years before consumption finally took him. Standing Bear watches this with fascination. Bull Morrison's mouth hangs open. Jake looks confused. But Lucas is drowning. 14 years, he breathes. 14 years, raised his daughter. Saw her married to a good man, died peacefully in his bed last month. Judge Harrison's eyes soften slightly. His last act was to clear your name. Said carrying hatred was what really killed him, not any bullet. The confession falls from her hands and flutters to the ground. Bradley picks it up, reads it with growing amazement. Sweet Jesus, the sheriff whispers. Tom, according to this, Norton says he drew first. Says the shooting was self-defense. Lucas can't breathe. 15 years of guilt. 15 years of carrying a dead man's weight on his soul, and the man wasn't even dead. But Vanessa, he starts. Your wife knows, Judge Harrison says gently. I rode out to tell her personally yesterday. That's why she sent word about you being missing. She was afraid you'd done something foolish when you learned the truth. The silence stretches forever. Then Curly speaks up, voice full of wonder. You mean the preacher's been carrying guilt for a crime that wasn't even a crime? Appears so. Bull laughs, but there's no humor in it. 15 years of running from something that never happened. Oh, it happened, Judge Harrison corrects. A man was shot. A family was broken. A young woman grew up without her father for months while he recovered. The consequences were real. But murder? No, that never happened. Lucas sits down hard in the dirt. All the strength has gone out of his legs. I don't understand, he says. Norton, he was bleeding so much. He stopped moving. I checked for breathing. Shock, Judge Harrison explains. Blood loss. His body shut down to survive. By the time he came around, you were long gone. Why didn't he come forward? Why let everyone think he was dead? Because he was ashamed. Ashamed that he drew on a 16-year-old boy over a few dollars. Ashamed that his pride nearly got him killed. The judge's voice is kind, but firm. He spent 14 years trying to find the courage to tell the truth. Standing Bear nods approvingly. Sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is admit he was wrong. Bradley holsters his gun. Well, I'll be damned. 15 years chasing a ghost. We've all been chasing ghosts, Lucas says quietly. He looks around at the faces watching him. Question is, what do we do now? The question hangs in the desert air. 6 lawmen, 4 Apache warriors, 5 outlaws, 1 former outlaw turned preacher, and 1 judge who's seen it all. Now, Judge Harrison says, we deal with the crimes that actually were committed, starting with the murder of Running Wolf. All eyes turn to Bull Morrison. The big man's face goes pale. Now hold on. No holding on, Standing Bear interrupts. You killed my nephew, that debt still stands. But we agreed to face his mother. And you will, but first you answer to white man's law. Judge Harrison's voice carries the authority of decades on the bench. I'm convening court right here, right now. You can't do that, Smiley protests. I'm a territorial judge. I can convene court anywhere I damn well please. She looks around. At the assembled men. Sheriff Bradley, I'm placing these men under arrest for the murder of Running Wolf. Standing Bear, I'm asking you to delay your justice until they've had their day in court. And if your court fails them, then they answer to Apache justice. It's a compromise, not perfect, but workable. What about us? Jake asks desperately. We didn't kill nobody. Judge Harrison studies the young man. That remains to be seen, but I'll tell you this. Cooperation will be noted when it comes time for sentencing. Lucas stands, brushes dust from his pants. Your Honor, I'd like to speak for these men. You're not a lawyer. No, but I'm a preacher, and I know something about redemption. The judge considers this very well. But first, we have a ceremony to attend. Ceremony. Running Wolf's funeral is tomorrow. We're all going to pay our respects. All of us. As the sun starts its descent toward the western mountains, the strangest procession in Arizona territory, history begins to form. Lawmen and outlaws, Apache warriors and white settlers, all united by the need to honor a dead boy and find some measure of justice in an unjust world. But the hardest justice to face is the kind that lives in your own heart. Have you ever discovered that something you felt guilty about for years wasn't really your fault? How did that change you? I'd love to hear your story. The Apache camp sits in a valley between red mesas, hidden from casual eyes but visible to Those who know where to look. Smoke rises from cook fires. Children play between the wickiups while their mothers work and watch the approaching strangers with careful eyes. It's a scene of ordinary life, except for the mourning lodge at the center of camp. Black paint on white buffalo hide. Silence, where there should be laughter. Standing Bear leads the procession down the narrow trail. Behind him ride 24 men who, under normal circumstances, would be shooting at each other. Stay close, he tells the group. Speak only when spoken to, show respect. Bull Morrison looks like he's riding to his own execution, which, in a way, he might be. What happens if they don't accept this court business? Red asks quietly. Judge Harrison doesn't soften her words. Then you die badly. The honesty is brutal but necessary. These men need to understand what they're walking into. As they enter the camp, Apache warriors emerge from the shadows, armed, paint on their faces, ready for whatever comes next. But it's the women who make the strongest impression, mothers holding children, grandmothers with eyes like flint. And in the center of them all, a woman in her 40s with graying hair and tears on her cheeks. Running Wolf's mother. Her name is Singing Bird. She's carried 9 children, buried 3. Seen her people driven from their ancestral lands. Watched her husband die fighting to protect what little remained. And now her youngest son is gone too. Standing Bear dismounts, approaches her with the respect due to a grieving mother. They speak in Apache, voices too low for the others to understand, but the meaning is clear. These are the men responsible. Singing Bird's eyes move across the group. They settle on Bull Morrison, and her face hardens like winter stone. You, she says in clear English, you killed my son. Bull can't meet her gaze. Ma'am, look at me. The command has the force of thunder behind it. Bull raises his head, meets those grief-stricken eyes. Tell me why. The simple question destroys him. Bull Morrison, who's robbed and killed and terrorized half, the territory breaks down completely. I don't know, he sobs. God help me, I don't know. He wanted to trade horses, Singing Bird continues. Offered you good money, why did you shoot him? He startled me, I thought he was reaching for a weapon. Was he? Bull's voice is barely a whisper. No. The silence that follows is deafening. Jake is crying openly now. Curly's praying under his breath. Even Smiley looks shaken. Judge Harrison steps forward. Singing Bird, I know words can't bring back your son, but I can offer you justice under the law. White man's law, Singing Bird says bitterly. Yes, white man's law, which means they'll hang for what they did. Standing Bear translates for some of the other Apache. There's murmuring, debate. My son is still dead, Singing Bird says finally. Yes, the judge agrees. He is. But maybe his death can mean something. Maybe it can prevent other mothers from losing their sons. Lucas speaks up. Mom, if I may, I know something about carrying guilt, about living with the weight of lives lost. Singing Bird looks at him. You are the preacher thief. I am. And I spent 15 years believing I'd killed a man, 15 years letting that guilt eat me alive, until I learned that sometimes the kindest thing we can do is let people find their way back to who they're supposed to be. These men killed my child. Yes, they did, and they'll answer for it. But hatred won't bring Running Wolf home. It'll just create more graves. An old Apache warrior speaks up, words like gravel. Standing Bear translates. He says the white preacher speaks wisdom, but wisdom doesn't satisfy a mother's heart. No, Lucas agrees, it doesn't, but maybe mercy can start to heal it. That's when something unexpected happens. Jake stands up, walks directly to Singing Bird despite the warriors reaching for their weapons. Mom, he says, voice shaking but determined, I bought your son's horse. I didn't know. I should have asked questions. Should have looked harder. He pulls money from his pocket. It ain't much, but it's everything I got for his burial, for whatever you need. The gesture is so unexpected, so genuine, that even the warriors pause. Singing Bird takes the crumpled bills, studies the young man's face. How old are you? 19, ma'am. My son would have been 17 next moon. She looks at the money, then back at Jake. What is your name? Jake. Jake Patterson. Ma'am, Jake Patterson, you will remember my son. Yes, ma'am, I swear it. She nods once. Then, to everyone's amazement, she places her hand on Jake's head, like a blessing. Then he is not forgotten. The old warrior speaks again. This time, Standing Bear's translation brings hope. He says the mother has shown wisdom. If she can, show mercy to the horse buyer, perhaps there is room for justice that does not require blood. Judge Harrison seizes the moment. I propose a trial tomorrow, here in this place, with both Apache and white witnesses. Let Running Wolf's death be judged by both our peoples. And if they are found guilty, Standing Bear asks, then they hang. But if mercy is shown, they spend their lives making amends, working for Apache families, protecting Apache children, turning their skills toward healing instead of hurting. It's a radical proposal, justice without revenge, punishment with purpose. Singing Bird considers this for a long moment. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of motherhood itself. We will have this trial, but I choose the jury. But the verdict she has in mind will surprise everyone. What would you choose? Swift justice or the chance for redemption? These decisions shape not just individuals, but entire communities. Tell me your thoughts. Dawn breaks over the Apache camp like God's own judgment day. The morning lodge has been moved aside, replaced by a circle of stones. Apache elders sit on one side, white witnesses on the other. In the center, 5 men await their fate. Judge Harrison has traded her traveling clothes for formal robes. The effect is impressive. Here in the wilderness, she carries the full weight of territorial law. But the real authority belongs to Singing Bird. She's chosen her jury carefully. 3 Apache mothers who've lost children to violence, 2 white settlers who've suffered at outlaw hands, and 1 surprising addition, Standing Bear himself. This is irregular, Sheriff Bradley mutters. This whole situation is irregular, Judge Harrison replies. We're making new precedent here. The trial begins simply. Judge Harrison reads the charges. Bull Morrison, Red Murphy, Smiley Walsh, Curly Adams, and Jake Patterson, you stand accused of the murder of Running Wolf, member of the Chiricahua Apache Nation. The evidence is straightforward. Running Wolf approached their camp to trade horses. Bull shot him when the young man reached for his money pouch. The others were accomplices by presence and inaction. How do you plead? The judge asks. Bull Morrison stands. His voice is steady now, resigned. Guilty, Your Honor. The others follow suit. Even Jake, who legally might escape serious punishment, pleads guilty to buying stolen property and failing to prevent a crime. Very well, Judge Harrison says. The court accepts your pleas. The question now is sentencing. That's when Singing Bird stands. I would speak, she says. The court recognizes Singing Bird, mother of the deceased. Every eye in the circle focuses on the grieving woman. Her words will likely determine whether these men live or die. My son was a good boy, she begins. Kind to animals, gentle with children. He dreamed of being a scout, of protecting our people. Her voice catches. He will never see another sunrise. Bull Morrison is weeping openly now. The sight of this hard man reduced to tears moves even the Apache warriors. You took my child from me, Singing Bird continues. You stole his dreams, his laughter, his future children who will never be born. The condemnation is devastating. Jake looks like he might collapse. But, Singing Bird says, and that single word changes everything, my son was also wise beyond his years. He believed that hatred poisons the person who carries it more than the person it's aimed at. She walks to the center of the circle, stands before the condemned men. You killed my son. This cannot be undone. But I have spent 3 days watching. You, listening to you. I see your guilt. I see your pain. I see men who have lost their way. Bull looks up at her, desperation in his eyes. Ma'am, if there was anything I could do... There is. The 2 words stop every conversation. Even the wind seems to pause. My people are few. Our children are precious. We need men who will protect them, not harm them. Singing Bird's voice grows stronger. I propose life for life. You took 1 life, now you must give your lives to protect Apache children. Judge Harrison leans forward. What exactly are you proposing? Exile from the white world. They come live with us, work for us, guard our young ones. If they prove worthy over many years, perhaps they earn forgiveness. If they fail, she shrugs, then they die badly. The proposal is stunning. Instead of execution, slavery. Instead of revenge, transformation. Standing Bear nods approvingly. The mother shows wisdom. These men know outlaw ways. They could teach us to defend against others like themselves. And if they try to escape, one of the white jurors asks. Singing Bird's smile is cold as winter. There is nowhere they could run that we would not find them. Apache warriors are patient hunters. Judge Harrison considers this. It's unusual, but not without precedent. Indentured servitude has been used before in territorial courts. She turns to the defendants. You've heard the proposal, life servitude to the Apache Nation in exchange for your lives. Do you accept? One by one they answer. Jake immediately. Yes, Your Honor. Curly, with relief in his voice. Yes, Your Honor. Red, grudgingly. Better than hanging. Smiley, after a long pause. I accept. All eyes turn to Bull Morrison. The leader, the killer, the man whose choice started this whole chain of events. Bull looks at Singing Bird. Ma'am, why? Why show mercy to a man who doesn't deserve it? Because my son would have, she says simply, and because hatred is a burden I choose not to carry. Bull breaks down completely. Yes, he sobs. God help me. Yes. Judge Harrison nods. Very well. By the authority vested in me by Arizona Territory, I sentence you to life servitude to the Chiricahua Apache Nation. May God have mercy on your souls. The trial is over. Justice, of a sort, has been served. But as the crowd disperses, Lucas approaches Singing Bird. That was an extraordinary act of mercy, he says. Was it mercy, she asks, or was it the cruelest punishment I could devise? The question hangs in the air, because living with guilt, Lucas knows, can be harder than dying with it. Either way, he says, you've given them a chance to become better men, perhaps. Or perhaps I have simply found a way to make them useful instead of dangerous. As they talk, Jake approaches hesitantly. Ma'am, when does it start? Singing Bird studies the young man. It starts now. You will help prepare my son's body for burial. You will learn to honor the dead properly. Jake nods, understanding the gravity of what's being asked. Yes, ma'am. And Jake Patterson? Yes, ma'am. If you run, I will let Standing Bear track you. He enjoys the hunt. The threat is delivered so calmly it's more terrifying than any shout. As the day progresses, the 5 former outlaws begin their new lives. Curly helps with the horses, finding unexpected peace in the work. Smiley, surprisingly, shows skill with leather work. Red sulks but obeys orders. Bull Morrison sits alone staring at his hands. The hands that killed a boy for no reason. Hands that will now serve that boy's people until the day he dies. Justice, mercy, revenge, redemption, all mixed together, in the desert heat. But one person's story is far from over. Do you think Singing Bird made the right choice? Sometimes the most radical act is refusing to seek revenge. Share your thoughts on mercy versus justice. 3 days later, Lucas Graham prepares to leave the Apache camp. The funeral is over, the trial concluded, the sentence is begun. His work here is done, or so he thinks. Sheriff Bradley approaches as Lucas saddles his horse. Preacher, I owe you an apology. For what? 15 years of hunting an innocent man. Lucas cinches the saddle tight. I wasn't innocent, Tom. I may not have killed Samuel Norton, but I robbed plenty of others. Hurt plenty of people, and spent 10 years making amends. Some things can't be made right with good deeds. Bradley studies him. You planning to turn yourself in for the old crimes? It's a fair question. Triple J committed dozens of robberies before the Norton shooting. Those crimes remain on the books. I don't know, Lucas admits. I need to talk to my wife first. She's a good woman, Vanessa. Lucky man who won her heart. The words hit Lucas like a physical blow, because Bradley doesn't know. Doesn't know that Vanessa is Samuel Norton's daughter. Doesn't know that she married the man she thought killed her father. Doesn't know that everything is about to change. Yes, Lucas says quietly. She is. Judge Harrison joins them. I've been thinking about your situation, preacher. What? About it? Statute of limitations has run out on most of your old crimes, horse theft, robbery. After 20 years, the territory can't prosecute. Most of them? Bank robbery in Tombstone, 1863. That one's still active. Federal jurisdiction, no time limit. Lucas nods. He remembers that job. Going bad, shooting in the street, innocent people caught in crossfire. How long do I have? You mean before federal marshals come looking? Already started. Word about you being alive is spreading. Great. From one problem to another. Your Honor, Bradley interjects. The man's been clean for 10 years. Surely that counts for something. In my court it would. Federal court? She shrugs. Different story. Standing Bear approaches the group. The white preacher is leaving? Afraid so. My wife's waiting. The woman who forgave you for killing her father. The words are spoken casually, but they hit the group like lightning. Bradley and Judge Harrison exchange startled glances. How did you? Lucas begins. Apache hear many things. We know Vanessa Norton married Lucas Graham. We know her. Father was Samuel Norton. Standing Bear's dark eyes are knowing. Question is, does she know her father didn't really die? The implications sink in slowly. Vanessa married Lucas believing he was her father's killer. Now she learns her father lived 14 more years, that their marriage was built on a lie. even if Lucas believed it was true. She knows, Judge Harrison says gently. I told her yesterday. How did she take it? About as well as you'd expect. She's confused, angry, relieved, and heartbroken all at once. Lucas swings into his saddle. Then I need to get home. Preacher, Standing Bear says. A word of advice? I'm listening. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. The wisdom in those words follows Lucas as he rides out of the Apache camp. Behind him, 5 former outlaws begin their strange new lives. Ahead of him waits a woman whose world has been turned upside down. But the real test of redemption is what comes after forgiveness. When you've made mistakes in your past, you think it's better to face them head-on or let sleeping dogs lie? These choices define who we become. Tell me what you think. The ride to Silver Creek takes 2 days. 2 days of thinking, wondering, worrying. What do you say to a woman who married you thinking you were a killer, only to learn you weren't? How do you rebuild a relationship founded on guilt and forgiveness when the guilt turns out to be misplaced? Silver Creek sits in a valley between pine-covered hills. It's a peaceful place, the kind of town where folks know their neighbors and children play safely in the streets. Lucas has been preacher here for 8 years. These people trust him, respect him, some even love him. But now they'll learn their preacher used to be an outlaw. How will that change things? The church sits on a hill overlooking the town. White wood, simple cross, bell tower pointing toward heaven. It's not much, but it's been home. Beside it sits the parsonage. Small house, white picket fence, garden where Vanessa grows vegetables and flowers. She's sitting on the front porch when he rides up. Still beautiful, still the woman who captured his heart. But something's changed. Her eyes are different. Older, sadder. Hello, Lucas, she says. Hello, Vanessa. He dismounts, ties his horse to the fence. Every movement feels heavy, weighted with history. How was your trip? She asks. Like this is any normal homecoming. Complicated. I imagine so. They look at each other across the small yard. Husband and wife. Strangers again. Van, I need to tell you about what happened. I know, she interrupts. Judge Harrison told me about the trial, the Apache, all of it. And? She stands, walks to the porch rail. And I don't know what to think anymore. For 3 years I believed I'd married my father's killer. Believed I'd found the strength to forgive the unforgivable. You did forgive me. But there was nothing to forgive. The words burst out of her. 3 days of emotion finally finding voice. I spent 3 years learning to love the man who destroyed my family, only to discover my family wasn't destroyed at all. Lucas steps closer. Your father still died, Van. Maybe not when I thought, but he still died. After 14 years. 14 years when he could have been part of my life, when I could have known him as an adult, when my children could have known their grandfather. The pain in her voice cuts through him like a blade. I'm sorry, he says, because there's nothing else to say. Sorry for what? You didn't know he was alive. Nobody did. She turns to face him, tears on her cheeks. That's what makes this so hard. I can't even hate you properly anymore. But the hardest conversation is still to come. Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship after discovering everything you thought you knew was wrong? How do you start over when the foundation has shifted? I'd love to hear your thoughts. They sit on the porch as the sun sets over Silver Creek, not touching but not quite apart either. 3 years of marriage hanging in the balance. Tell me about him, Lucas says quietly. About who? Your father. After he recovered. What was he like? Vanessa is quiet for a long moment. When she speaks, her voice is soft with memory. According to Judge Harrison, he became a different man, gentle, thoughtful. He worked as a clerk in Phoenix, helped other families who'd lost people to violence. Sounds like a good man. He was, after you shot him. The words aren't accusatory, just factual. Apparently almost dying changed him, made him realize what really mattered. Lucas absorbs this. We're more alike than I thought. How so? Almost dying changed me too. When that girl, Sarah, was dying in my arms and talking about forgiveness, that's when Triple J really died. They sit in silence, watching the town settle into evening. Lamplight flickers in windows. Families gathering for dinner. Children being called inside. Normal life. The life they used to have. Lucas, Vanessa says finally, I need to ask you something. Ask. If you'd known he was alive, would you have come forward? Would you have faced justice for the other crimes? The question cuts to the heart of everything. Because the truth is complicated. I don't know, he admits. 10 years ago? Probably not. I was too afraid, too selfish. But now I think I would, should. The families I robbed, the people I hurt, they deserve justice too. Vanessa nods. Judge Harrison says federal marshals are coming. I know. What will you do? Lucas looks at his hands. Preacher hands now, soft from holding Bibles instead of guns, but still the hands that held those guns. I'll face whatever comes. I owe that much to the people I wronged. Even if it means hanging? Even then, the answer seems to satisfy something in her. Good. The man I married wouldn't run from his responsibilities. The man you married was a lie. No, her voice is firm. The man I married was someone trying to become better than he used to be. That's not a lie. That's hope. Hope. Such a simple word, but it carries the weight of their entire future. Van, I need to tell you something else. More secrets? Not a secret. A choice I have to make. He turns to face her fully. The church board is meeting tomorrow, words already spreading about who I used to be. They'll want answers. And I think it's time for Preacher Graham to step down. The words hang in the evening air like smoke from a dying fire. You don't have to do that, Vanessa says. Yes, I do. These people trusted me. They deserve to know who they've been listening to all these years. They've been listening to a good man who makes them better people. They've been listening to a former outlaw who lied about his past. Vanessa stands, walks to the porch. Rail. You know what I think? What? I think you're afraid. The accusation stings because it's true. Of course I'm afraid. I'm afraid of losing everything that matters to me, including me. The question he's been dreading. The one that will determine whether they have a future or just a past. Especially you. She turns back to him. Lucas Graham, you are the most stubborn, prideful, self-sacrificing man I've ever known. Is that good or bad? I'm still deciding, but there's the hint of a smile on her lips. Tell me something. Do you love me? More than my own life? Do you regret marrying me? Never. Not for 1 second. Then stop trying to make decisions for both of us. She sits back down beside him. You want to confess to the church? Fine. You want to face federal justice? Fine. But don't you dare decide whether our marriage can survive this without asking me first. Can it? She takes his hand. Hers is warm, familiar, still wearing the simple gold band he placed there 3 years ago. I don't know, she says honestly. I thought I knew who I was, the forgiving widow who married her father's killer. Now I don't know anything anymore. So what do? We figure it out, together, one day at a time. It's not the passionate declaration he was hoping for, but it's not rejection either. It's something more precious. It's a chance. A knock at the door interrupts the moment. Lucas opens it to find Tommy Peterson, the blacksmith's boy. Preacher Graham? My pa sent me. Says there's men asking questions about you down at the saloon. Strangers. They got badges. The federal marshals. Sooner than expected. Thank you. Tommy, tell your pa I'll be down directly. The boy runs off. Lucas turns back to Vanessa. Looks like confession time just moved up. What will you tell them? The truth. All of it. She stands, smooths her dress. Then I'm coming with you. Van, you don't have to. Yes, I do. We're in this together, remember? For better or worse. Those are wedding vows. Exactly. As they walk down the hill toward town, Lucas realizes something. For the first time in 15 years, he's not running from his past. He's walking straight into it, with his wife at his side. But the confrontation waiting at the saloon will test everything they've rebuilt. When you've made mistakes in your past, do you think it's better to face them head-on or let sleeping dogs lie? These choices define who we become. Tell me what you think. The Silver Creek Saloon hasn't seen this much excitement since the territorial governor's visit last spring. Seems like half the town's crowded inside, with the other half pressed against the windows trying to see. At the center of it all sit 3 men in dark suits. Federal marshals, badges gleaming in the lamplight. They've got the look of professionals, calm, patient, dangerous when necessary. The lead marshal is a man named Coleman, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, the kind who's seen every trick outlaws can pull. Evening, Marshal, Lucas says as he and Vanessa enter. Coleman looks up from his whiskey. Preacher Graham, or should I say John Jameson Jones. Either works. Depends on which man you're here for. The saloon goes dead quiet. Even the bartender stops wiping glasses. I think you know which one, Coleman says. The bank robbery in Tombstone. Among other things. Coleman stands, his hand resting, casually near his gun. John Jameson Jones, you're under arrest for robbery of a federal bank, assault on federal officers, and murder in the commission of a felony. The last charge hits like a thunderbolt. Murder. Lucas remembers that day, the shooting in the street, but he thought everyone survived. Who did I kill? He asks quietly. Deputy Marshal Frank Collins. Good man. Left a wife and 3 children. The words hit Lucas like physical blows. Another life on his hands, another family destroyed. I remember him, Lucas says. Young fellow, tried to stop us outside the bank. That's right, you shot him down in the street. The room spins. Lucas grabs a chair for support. All these years he thought he'd only killed Samuel, Norton. Now he learns Norton lived, but Collins died. I didn't mean to kill him, he whispers. Intent doesn't matter. Dead is dead. The crowd murmurs. These people have known Lucas for 8 years, trusted him with their children's souls. Now they're learning he's not just a former thief, but a killer. Marshal Coleman, Judge Harrison's voice cuts through the tension. She enters the saloon like she owns it. Interesting timing. Judge Harrison, I wasn't expecting to find you here. Funny thing about that murder charge, she says, settling into a chair. I did some checking with the federal court in Phoenix. Coleman's face doesn't change, but his eyes narrow slightly. Oh? Seems Deputy Marshal Collins didn't die in that shooting after all. Wounded, yes, badly, but he recovered. Lived another 12 years before a horse kicked him in the head. The saloon erupts. Conversations, arguments, confusion. Coleman's jaw tightens. That's impossible. I have the death certificate. You have a falsified document, Judge Harrison says calmly. I telegraphed Phoenix this morning. Frank Collins died in 1875, kicked by a horse outside a brothel. Natural causes, if you can call stupidity natural. Coleman's face goes red. Judge, I don't appreciate federal marshals operating with false warrants. In my territory. Her voice carries the authority of decades on the bench. Tell me, Marshal, who exactly sent you after Jones? The question hangs in the air like gun smoke, because that's when the pieces start falling together. Standard federal warrant, Coleman says, but there's sweat on his forehead now. Issued by whom? Judge Morrison in Tucson. Funny thing about Judge Morrison, Harrison says, he died 3 months ago. Heart attack. So unless you're serving warrants from beyond the grave, the trap snaps shut. Coleman's hand moves toward his gun, but Sheriff Bradley is already there, his Colt drawn and steady. I wouldn't, Bradley says calmly. The other 2 marshals look confused. They're legitimate lawmen, Lucas realizes. They just don't know their leader isn't. Marshal Coleman, Judge Harrison continues, or whoever you really are, I'm placing you under arrest for impersonating a federal officer. This is ridiculous, Coleman blasters. Is it? Let's see your commission. Coleman's hand freezes halfway to his jacket pocket, because he doesn't have one, can't have one. That's when Vanessa speaks up, her voice cutting through the tension, like a knife. His name is Daniel Morrison, Judge Morrison's son. Every head turns toward her. Coleman's face goes pale. How did you, he starts. Because you look just like your father. I met him once, years ago. You have his eyes. Vanessa steps forward. Question is, why is a dead judge's son pretending to be a federal marshal? The answer comes from Sheriff Bradley, who's been putting pieces together. Because Judge Morrison handled Triple J's case back in '63, always claimed he could have caught him if the feds hadn't interfered. Became obsessed with it. Obsessed enough to pass that obsession to his son, Judge Harrison adds. Coleman, Morrison, finally, drops the pretense. His shoulders sag. His hand moves away from his gun. 15 years, he says bitterly. 15 years my father talked about the one who got away, the great Triple J who made him look like a fool. So when you heard I was alive, Lucas begins, I saw a chance to finish what he started. Clear the family name. It's pathetic, really. A grown man trying to win a dead father's approval by chasing ghosts. Daniel Morrison, Judge Harrison says formally, you're under arrest for impersonating federal officers, falsifying documents and fraud. As Bradley cuffs the fake marshal, his 2 companions look embarrassed and confused. Judge, one of them says, we had no idea. The paperwork looked legitimate. I'm sure it did. You're free to go, gentlemen, no charges. As the real marshals escort Morrison out of the saloon, the crowd begins to disperse, but not before several townspeople approach Lucas. Preacher, says Mrs. Henderson, the schoolmarm, I don't care what you used to be. You've been nothing, but good to this town. That's right, adds Tom Peterson, the blacksmith. You married my daughter to a good man, buried my mother with dignity, helped my boy through his troubles. Past is past. One by one they voice their support. Not all of them. Some leave without speaking, probably thinking hard about what they've learned, but enough stay to matter. Finally, the saloon empties except for Lucas, Vanessa, Judge Harrison, and Sheriff Bradley. Well, the judge says, that was educational. What happens now? Lucas asks. Now you go home with your wife. The federal charges were bogus. The territorial charges are past statute of limitations. You're a free man. Free. After 15 years of running and hiding and carrying guilt, he's finally free. But freedom, Lucas is learning, is more complicated than just avoiding jail. Judge, he says, I need to ask you something. What's that? The families I robbed, the people I hurt, don't they deserve restitution? Harrison studies him. That's between you and your conscience, son. The law can't compel mercy, but justice can. Yes, sometimes it can. As they walk home under a canopy of desert stars, Vanessa takes his arm. What are you thinking? She asks. I'm thinking I've got a lot of work to do. What kind of work? The kind that matters, finding the families I wronged, making amends where I can, using what I have to help instead of hurt. That could take years. I've got years. She stops walking, turns to face him in the moonlight. We've got years, she corrects, and for the first time in days, Lucas smiles. But the real test of redemption is what comes after forgiveness. Do you think true redemption requires making amends, or is genuine change enough? These are the questions that define who we become after we've fallen. Share your thoughts. 6 months later, Lucas Graham stands in a cemetery outside Phoenix. The headstone reads, Frank Collins, Deputy U.S. Marshal, devoted husband and father. Beside him stands a woman in her 50s, graying hair beneath a black bonnet. Mary Collins, Frank's widow. He was a good man, she says quietly. Believed in justice, but tempered with mercy. I'm sorry I took him from you, Lucas replies, even if it was just for those 12 years when you thought he was dead. She looks at him with eyes that have seen too much grief. You know what's strange? When I got word he'd been killed in that bank robbery, I hated you. Spent years hating John Jameson Jones. You had every right. Did I? Because when Frank came home, wounded but alive, he wasn't angry. Said the shooting taught him something about the value of life. Made him a better husband, a better father. Lucas doesn't know what to say to that. After he really died, she continues, after that horse kicked him, he left me a letter. Said he'd always wondered what became of the young outlaw who shot him. Said he hoped you'd found peace. She reaches into her purse, pulls out a worn envelope. This is for you. Lucas takes it with shaking hands, opens it carefully. The letter is short, written in a lawman's careful script. To John Jameson Jones. If you're reading this, it means you survived whatever path you chose after our encounter. I hope it was a good path. I hope you found what you were looking for. When you robbed that bank, whether it was money or freedom or just a way out of whatever hole you dug for yourself, I won't lie and say I'm glad you shot me, but I will say that nearly dying taught me things I needed to learn, about what matters, about how precious time is, about forgiveness. If we ever meet again, I hope it's as better men than we were that day. Frank Collins. The letter blurs as Lucas reads it. When he looks up, Mary Collins is watching him. He was right about one thing, she says. What's that? You did become a better man. They stand in silence for a while, two people connected by violence, but choosing peace. Mrs. Collins, Lucas says finally, I'd like to help your children, Frank's children, college funds if they want them, or help starting businesses, whatever they need. You don't owe us anything. I owe you everything. She considers this. My youngest, Daniel, wants to be a teacher, but we can't afford the training. He'll have it. And my daughter, Sarah, she stops realizing the name. Funny, another Sarah. Sarah's a good name. What does she want? To be a nurse. Says she wants to help people heal. She'll have that chance too. As they leave the cemetery, Mary Collins pauses. Preacher Graham, thank you for coming here, for facing this. A lot of men would have just stayed hidden. A lot of men are smarter than I am. No, a lot of men are more cowardly. The train to Silver Creek is crowded, full of miners and cowboys and families heading west for new starts. Lucas finds a seat by the window, watches the desert roll past. In his satchel are letters, dozens of them, responses to the advertisements he placed in newspapers across the territory. John Jameson Jones seeks to make amends to those he wronged during his outlaw years. If you or your family suffered losses due to his crimes, please contact Preacher L. Graham, Silver Creek, Arizona Territory. Some letters are angry, some are suspicious, but others offer forgiveness he doesn't deserve and hope he's afraid to accept. The letter from the widow in Tucson whose husband he robbed in 1862. I don't want your money, but if you're sincere about making amends, there's an orphanage here that needs help. The note from a banker in Flagstaff. You stole $800 from my bank in 1864. interest. The total is now 3,000. But I'll settle for you funding a scholarship for deserving children. And most surprisingly, a letter from Bull Morrison. Yes, that Bull Morrison, the man serving life sentence to the Apache Nation. Preacher, heard about your troubles. Wanted you to know the Apache work ain't punishment like I thought, it's healing. Standing Bear says a man can't change his past, but he can choose his future. Thought you should know that. Your friend, strange to write that, Bull, friend, from a man who tried to kidnap him for ransom money. The train pulls into Silver Creek as the sun sets. Vanessa is waiting on the platform, looking beautiful, in a blue dress he's never seen before. How did it go, she asks as they walk home. Better than I hoped, harder than I feared. Frank Collins' family? Good people. Hurt people, but good people. His son wants to be a teacher. You'll help him? If he'll let me. They reach their house as the first stars appear. It looks the same as always. White picket fence, small garden, lamplight in the windows, but something's different. There's a new sign by the front gate. L. Graham Counseling and Mediation Services. What's this? Lucas asks. Your new job, Vanessa says with a smile. Well, one of them. The church board voted to keep you as preacher, by the way. Unanimous decision. Even after everything? Especially after everything. Turns out people value honesty, more than they value perfect pasts. And the counseling? Your idea, actually. You said you wanted to help people heal from violence, help them forgive. Sheriff Bradley thinks it's brilliant. Half the conflicts in this territory come from people who can't let go of old grievances. Lucas looks at the sign, then at his wife. When did you order this? The day you left for Phoenix. I knew. You'd come back different. Lighter somehow. She's right. He does feel lighter. Not because his sins are erased, they never will be, but because he's finally stopped running from them. Van, he says, I love you. I love you too. All of you. The preacher and the outlaw and the man trying to figure out how to be both. That night, as they sit on their porch watching Silver Creek settle into evening quiet, Lucas thinks about the long road that brought him here. A 16-year-old boy turning to crime to survive. A young man losing his way in violence and greed. A broken outlaw finding hope in a dying child's faith. A guilty man learning to live with grace he didn't earn. And now? Now he's something new. Not quite preacher, not quite outlaw, but something in between. Something that fits. Penny. For your thoughts, Vanessa says. Just thinking about second chances. What about them? How rare they are, how precious, how easy it is to waste them. She takes his hand. Good thing you didn't waste yours. Later, as Silver Creek sleeps around them, Lucas lies awake, thinking about all the lives that intersected with his in the desert that day. A fake marshal's obsession, an Apache mother's mercy, 5 outlaws learning to be human again, all of them changed by a simple choice, to see people as capable of growth instead of prisoners of their past. In the distance, a coyote calls to its pack. Once that sound would have made him reach for his gun, ready for danger. Now it just sounds like conversation, like creatures finding their way home in the darkness, which, when you think about it, is what they're all doing, finding their way home. 1 year later, Lucas Graham stands before a crowd gathered in Silver Creek's town square. It's dedication day for the new community center, built with money from his restitution fund and labor donated by grateful townspeople. But this isn't his story anymore. Not really. The real story belongs to the people whose lives intersected with his along the way. People who chose forgiveness over vengeance, healing over hatred. Take Jake Patterson. The scared 19-year-old is now 20, serving his second year with the Apache Nation, but he's no longer a prisoner. Standing Bear recently declared him a member of the tribe, earning his new name through acts of courage, protecting Apache children from raiders. His Apache name translates to stands between, because that's what he does, stands between the innocent and those who would harm them. Jake's here today on leave from his duties, taller now, confident in a way he never was as an outlaw. He approaches Lucas after the ceremony. Preacher, he says, wanted to thank you. For what? For showing me there was another way, for not letting me stay lost. They shake hands and Lucas sees something in the young man's eyes that wasn't there before. Peace. What will you do when your service is complete? Lucas asks. Thinking about becoming a scout. Help protect folks traveling through Apache country. Make sure what happened to Running Wolf doesn't happen to others. It's perfect justice. A man who once bought stolen horses now protects travelers from thieves. Curly Adams is here too. He completed his Apache service 6 months ago and now works as a counselor. helping other former outlaws find their way back to decent society. Turns out his prayers weren't just for show. The man has a gift for reaching lost souls. Even Bull. Morrison sent a letter delivered by Apache courier. Preacher, heard about your new work. Wanted you to know I'm different now too. Apache ways are hard but fair. Learning their language, their customs. Maybe someday I can help prevent conflicts between our peoples. Maybe Running Wolf's death will save other lives. Hope springs eternal as you taught me. Your friend, Bull. But the most surprising guest is Daniel Morrison, the fake marshal's son who tried to arrest Lucas on false charges. After his father was imprisoned for fraud, Daniel did some soul-searching, realized he'd been carrying his father's obsessions instead of following his own path. Mr. Graham, he says, approaching nervously, I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, son. Yes, I do. I nearly destroyed you because of my father's grudges. That's not justice. That's just sickness. Daniel's found his own form of redemption. He's training to be a lawyer now, specializing in helping wrongfully accused prisoners, using his knowledge of false evidence to protect instead of prosecute. As the crowd disperses, Lucas and Vanessa walk home together. The evening is peaceful, painted in shades of gold and purple. Do you ever miss it? She asks. Miss what? The excitement, the danger, the simplicity of your old life. It's a fair question. Triple J's world was violent but simple. Take what you want, trust no one, survive by any means necessary. Lucas Graham's world is complicated, full of moral grey areas, difficult choices, people who need help, but don't always want it. No, he says finally. I don't miss it. Not even a little. Not even a little. They reach their house as the first stars appear. The sign by the gate has been updated. L. Graham, ministry, counseling, and mediation, all welcome, healing. For the broken. Inside there's a letter waiting on Lucas's desk. It's from Mary Collins, Frank's widow. Dear Preacher Graham, my son Daniel graduated from Teachers College last week, highest marks in his class. He wants to teach in frontier schools, help children who might otherwise turn to desperate measures. He says he's inspired by your story, how education and second chances can change everything. Thank you for keeping your promise. Frank would be proud. Mary. Lucas sets the letter aside and pulls out his journal. Every night he writes. Not about his sins, those are recorded well enough in his memory. About redemption, about people choosing to be better, about hope taking root in the strangest places. Tonight's entry. 1 year since the trial. Jake Patterson is thriving with the Apache. Curly Adams is helping other lost men find their way. Bull Morrison is building bridges between peoples. Even Daniel Morrison has turned his father's hatred into fuel for justice. I think often about what Standing Bear told me, that sometimes the kindest thing we can do is let people find their way back to who they're supposed to be. Maybe that's what grace really is. Not the erasure of our sins, but the strength to become something better despite them. Tomorrow, a new family arrives in Silver Creek. The husband was involved in a shooting 3 years ago. Still carrying guilt. Still afraid he's beyond redemption. I'll tell him what I've learned, that as long as you're breathing, as long as you're willing to do the work, it's never too late to choose a different ending to your story. The devil in preacher's clothes? Maybe. But sometimes the devil's the one who needs saving most of all. As he closes the journal, Vanessa appears in the doorway. Coming to bed? In a minute. What are you thinking about? Just grateful, I guess, for second chances, for people who believe in redemption, for you, she smiles. For me, for seeing who I could become instead of just who I was. That's what love does, she says simply. It sees potential instead of just problems. Later, as Silver Creek sleeps around them, Lucas lies awake thinking about all the lives that intersected with his in the desert that day. A fake marshal's obsession, an Apache mother's mercy, 5 outlaws learning to be human again. All of them changed by a simple choice, to see people as capable of growth instead of prisoners of their past. In the distance, a coyote calls to its pack. Once that sound would have made him reach for his gun, ready for danger. Now it just sounds like conversation, like creatures finding their way home in the darkness. Which, when you think about it, is what they're all doing, finding their way home. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, you discover that home isn't a place you return to, it's a person you become. What's the most important lesson you've learned about forgiveness, giving it or receiving it? These stories matter because they remind us that change is possible, that redemption is real, and that sometimes the most broken people become the strongest healers. Thank you for listening to this tale of the American West, where justice and mercy learn to dance together under desert stars.